Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming and staying with us. We hope this panel will be interesting for you. This is a very important and special panel, not only because we have here 4 Chinese ladies who are living in Israel and can share their story with us, also because we are going to focus about the cultural depth and differences between China and Israel from a business cultural perspective. So, let's dig in. You ready? Okay. I will start with general questions to all of you, if you can briefly answer your perspective on it. So, as business advisor to China, also us at Eastchamp, we always emphasize the cultural differences as a key for doing business in China. We are sure that in the Chinese community in Israel, you also have your own rules and tips that you give to your colleague about how to do business with us, with Israelis. So please, as Ariel also said, use the Israeli chutzpah that I'm sure you all are familiar with, and share with us what you say behind our back. Yael, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm Yael. I'm from Higher Israel Innovation Center, and today I would like to share about my thoughts of how living here and working here as a Chinese is about. And I actually love this question because it's in rare case in the panels, someone bring this question up and saying, okay, say in front of our face, what are you thinking about us? As I've been living here for 4 years, I know pretty well about how Israelis are thinking. So what I'm saying below is the points that I hear from someone from China, like the investors I've been in touch with, or our colleagues from China. And actually, 3 points. The very first one, and one of the most, the important one, is that they see Israelis as short-sighted. Don't get me wrong, it's not a negative word in my eyes, but being short-sighted means that they care more about what they can get now, as is. For example, when you are talking with an Israeli, when a Chinese is talking with an Israeli entrepreneur, a CEO, usually the Israelis care more about is how much upfront they get. For example, we're talking about a business that you can implement your chip into a Chinese system. You can either choose to have, let's say, 150K upfront, dollars, upfront fee for now, and you probably won't get anything in the end. But you can choose to have, let's say, nothing for now, but if the POC or whatever succeeds, you can get, let's say, millions of RMB profit in China. But in most cases, the Israeli startups will choose the first one because it's limited in their strategy. They need cash. They need support for now. They don't have enough time to think that long in the future. So this is the point where Chinese think, okay, why don't you think in the long term? We're trying to build a bigger picture. We wanted to go into the latter stage, but why are you so short-sighted and you don't get us? But from the Israeli side, I know, the Chinese also don't get them. That's what they think because, you don't understand what case I am in now. So this is the point that I'm always encountering, whether you pay me now or whether you wait until let's say 3 years later. And this is always the point to struggle. And the second point is that when, we know that there are many brilliant engineers or brilliant management team in the startups. In many cases, they don't have a POC yet. They have a brilliant idea. They need some money or need some help with building up the very initial stage. But for Chinese, okay, you have a brilliant team. You are very eager to do something. But the plan is so good that it's very hard to be true. How can I believe you? What if you're just taking my money and run away? You build such a beautiful story, but you won't make it in the end. This kind of risk is what Chinese are very hard to take. And this is the gap that I see, the second gap in that I see in the business. And the third one, which is the most interesting one, is what we call chutzpah. But the chutzpah is different from what we talk about. For example, there was one case I was in, really in, and I got shocked. There were 4 investors in the room with an entrepreneur.
Israeli or Chinese?
4 investors from China, and the entrepreneur is Israeli. It's their very first meeting. The Chinese came in the same day, and they landed, and they went to the meeting. And the Israelis will start with a saying that, okay, now we're in the investment round. We need $12 million investment. So now, 4 of you, each of you, you 3 million, you 3 million, you 3 million. So we finished the round, let's do it. So what do Chinese think? Wow, it's just our first meeting. Why should I promise you this? And why should you bring it so upfront? Like in our culture, we'll just sit down, talk about what we are planning, and maybe we move a little forward each time, or maybe we move a little forward after 15 or 20 dinners. But why you bring it so upfront? Like you're too eager, and I'm afraid I will stay away from you because you are trying to take my money. So this is the case that I see. This is something that kind of hard to bridge. But luckily, we found a way to bridge, and this is, I might elaborate later, and I'll leave more time to my friends.
Thank you. This is Noah. I would just address one small point. It might be from only my perspective because I work in the sales organization. My title is account management, but in my job, we do sales and like retention, renewal, because we're a SaaS company. One thing that I see is quite funny from my Chinese client that actually is exactly the opposite as Yifeng mentioned. So, there can be two sides of one story is they expect us to skip all the procurement process and legal process just to get what they wanted done like today. Or they sometimes ignore that there is office hour in Israel. People don't work after 8 p.m. They don't work on Shabbat. I think, from my perspective, I do have the privilege of sending my client on WeChat message, even though if it's 12 p.m. there, they wouldn't get offended. But I think the other way around, like people just need to remember that, there are differences, be more patient, be more compromising, and, everything will work out eventually.
Thank you, Noah. This is Kalei. And so actually I also want to add some point of the chutzpahnik. And in Israel, I also learned to get more chutzpahnik because usually in Chinese culture, we are coming from more hyper-context content. So, but in Israel, if we want to really deliver ourselves or our desire, we need to speak it out. So this is also how should in my work. Because my work is also in software industry, and I come in working with like a background with a multicultural background. So we have clients and colleagues not only from China or Israel, it's more international. So how can we deliver our like work target and make it implement successfully? Usually, if I as a Chinese, I would more speaking a more tolerant way, but in Israel, I also learned like to speak in a more strict and desired way in order to deliver whatever I want. And I really think these are very positive differences, and this is what I think is the differences between China and the Israel culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi guys, Shalom Nakulam. I'm Shasha. I'm from high school. I didn't know our conversation is gonna get in so serious, It's talking about like how you need to avoid in business and what's the difference between China and Israel. I want to give something fun here, okay? I want to know something is like, I feel like Israelis, I have lived here 2 years now, but what till now, I still don't understand is that I feel there's a kind of thing from you guys, you're Israelis. You have this kind of a blind confidence. No matter you know it or you don't know it, no matter you have done it, you have experience or not, but you can always say, I know it, I know how to do it. So at the very beginning, I was like, okay, I trust my people, I will let them do their job. Then it turned out to be disaster. So I'm like, come on, people, why you have such kind of a confidence if you don't know how to do it? So at the very beginning, I was kind of like, I don't think I like this culture. But then after a while, you know what, I think it's something very interesting here is because as a Chinese, we are always kind of like shy. If we are not sure what we are talking about, we will hesitate it, we won't take any actions. But Israelis, like my colleagues, they will be so brave, ask all kinds of questions. They don't be embarrassed if they don't know something. I think that's the best way to learn new stuff. That's also the thing I learned from Israelis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I think we can conclude that there are similarities as well as differences, maybe even more similarities between the two cultures, and what's important is to strengthen the positive ones. So next, I want to turn to Noah. The audience here today, and also those who reach us and Isham, they are all looking to build an entity, a business entity in China, or already have a business entity in China, which includes, managing local staff, communication with the local government, etc. Now, as someone who worked in a Chinese company as well as in an Israeli company, and I think Kelly also can answer this question later, what are the main differences between working in an Israeli and Chinese company in terms of internal organizational system? Yes, please elaborate.
So as for me, I actually think there's a lot more in similar than what's it's like fundamentally different. Sometimes they're back and forth, sometimes bureaucratic, sometimes there's conflicting interests between different teams. So in order to move forward internally, you probably need to get approval from different appealing leaders or from different decision makers. But I think one thing that we can definitely, as someone that works in an Israeli organization now, is I think I like the transparency here. I think reflecting what almost all the girls here said about chutzpah, saying being straightforward. Israeli organizations are usually much smaller. Even for those that has international branches, they usually in the Israel office, they wouldn't have something more than 200-300 people. So also because people are friends with each other, so instead of sending tons of email or sending chats, which is even worse because WeChat is definitely not the best tool for business conversations, people can just walk to their desk and ask hey, how about that request I sent you last week? And say, yeah, okay, just take it slow, okay? It's going to be ready next week. If it's not, then it's okay, but at least you get a response or you get an ETA. In China, I don't think it works, probably more traditional companies, it doesn't work that way. In high tax, it might, but still, people are feeling less comfortable while having those face-to-face conversations. They would probably rather go through some, certain process and, get things done in the months, which is also, a downside.
Thank you, Noah. So I guess for me, the biggest differences that I see between China and Israel is about labeling. China is a country that people live or teach people to live according to different kind of labels. No matter people, some people claim for it, some people don't claim for it. But actually, this is how most of the Chinese live their life with. It can come from a very good perspective. But when I came to Israel and I found out that Israelis are not live according to the labels that society try to detect it for them, of course there are some kind of a degree of the labeling. For example, you're coming from which kind of a family, a good poor family or rich family, or come from a good university, a regular university. But I do see people, they are trying to define their label by themselves and define their destiny by themselves. But in China, it's more like people majorly live according to this, people take it as a faith and they live with it. So what actually I learned from this is I try to stop labeling myself, also labeling people or colleagues around me. Because people are coming from more international background, it's impossible to label people from different perspectives, which also because you are not being, people will not recognize you by what other people talking about you. So you have to really try hard and work hard. And because of the willpower, it's really strong in Israel. So it's almost like possible for me to be whatever I want if I try to deliver myself. So that's what I think is a positive differences for me between Israel and China.
Thank you, Yael. Maybe you would like to elaborate. You are actually working in a JV, a Chinese and Israeli JV, Ayer and Strauss Water. So you have the perspective of both companies. Maybe you can elaborate about this question.
I would say, like, because of the size, like in the very first place, because of the size, the decision-making process is totally different. For example, in a startup, everything is like on the same surface. You can reach out to the CEO, whatever opinions you have, you can tell them, you can argue with them. But in China, it's not the way. Like, for example, Haier has employees only in our headquarters, 20K employees. So when you want to talk to, let's say, your team leader or the big boss, the CTO, you need to go through all the stages. So it's very hard to direct by yourself if you're an Israeli startup who you are talking to. For example, you met someone in the event here in Israel. You met someone from Haier. He might be from R&D, like the junior engineer. He said, okay, we're interested in this technology. And usually Israelis will think that, okay, so I found the right person. I will push him all the way till the end. He's the decision maker. But actually he's not. He has boss. His boss has boss. Like, there is a hierarchy. So it's really important for you to know who you're talking with. And you need someone to direct you to the right people to talk with. And this is one of the big differences when Israelis are seeing a company structure and how Chinese are seeing the company structure. Same happened. Like, when Chinese are visiting here in Israel, they meet with the CEO, and they're afraid of talking with the CEO kind of directly because he himself is not the decision maker, and he cannot promise whatever he wants to say. Like, he might have an opinion, but he doesn't have a final say. So he prefers to say nothing and wait until his boss agrees or his boss is noticed. So the process is very long. And you might wait for like 3 months, 4 months, all the way till you have an answer. Maybe it's a no, like in most cases. So you need to for Israelis, you need to understand the point of how the decision is made so that you will have a proper expectation. And what we're trying to do here is to lower the expectation as much as possible while trying to push the Chinese side to be more active, to be more efficient in the decision making, so that the misunderstanding between is going like all the way down.
Okay, so trying to close the gaps. I think we're all pretty much agree on that. Sally, I want to ask you, in your previous job, you worked at TechHod, which is an incubator who accompanied many Israeli companies in China to the Chinese market. And today you work for an Israeli company and you're helping them enter the market. Can you share with us from your experience some of the patterns or specific characteristics for an Israeli company to succeed in the Chinese market?
Sure. So I think all of the things, I could have like maybe 10 or 20 tips for all of you, but I think the key thing is just always remember localization. When I'm talking about localization, it's not just about, in China, when I give someone a business card, I need to use my 2 hands, and I need to go out with them for dinner and get drunk. That's not enough. That's not about the localization side. What you need to know is really understand the market. So I did see some companies, they did pretty well in the Chinese market. It's because first of all, they understand the market. Second, they really find the good partners or find the good team who actually know the market. For example, I think some of you probably from the car industry, and you know right now in China about the autonomous vehicle. It's like really everyone try to cut a piece of cake from that. But there's one company, I think maybe I cannot really name them here, but what they did is right now they hired the former Chinese country manager work for Mobileye to help them to develop the business there. And that person in that industry, like I used to in charge of the automobile in projects back then when I was in TechHod. So when we talk about that person, most of the Chinese in that industry, they know her, they respect her, and which means first she has a knowledge, and meanwhile she has a connections. So if you find this kind of right partner for you, I'm sure that will help you a lot on the business. So the third one about localization is about the products. So right now I work in an Israeli startup, and what we are doing is about HR tech. And our products, the first day when the CEO, we had a conversation with each other, she said, I don't want to have American products because right now, like our major clients of us is from US. He said, I don't want American products. to deploy or implement in the Chinese market? Because I don't feel it's the right thing. So I say, yeah, absolutely, you're right. Because in China, the user experience, the behavior is totally different. And she understands that. So that's the thing. I think if you decide to really penetrate to the Chinese market, don't give the Chinese the product that you give to Americans or Europeans or even Israelis, because we are totally different. Like, there's also some failure case like eBay. You know eBay failed in China, but you also know Taobao and Alibaba, they are quite successful. So I think all the companies right now, I see they succeed in China, basically they did a very good job on localization. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does, and I want to follow up on that question. Maybe also Yael can answer it, because I know Hire is now, one of your jobs is scouting for Israeli startups to enter the Chinese market. So my follow-up question is whether you ever encounter an Israeli company whose product really fits the Chinese market, but because of different profile of the company or different characteristic of the company, they did not succeed. Both of you, whoever has the answer, or the other girls as well can elaborate.
Can you rephrase it again?
Use the
Thanks.
chutzpah, don't be shy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so have you ever met or worked with an Israeli company who has a product who really fit the Chinese market, but because of different characteristic profile of the Israeli company itself, they did not succeed, or it was harder for them, more challenging for them?
Okay, I guess I will go first. So we did see many of these kind of cases, and most of the time, I think still because of lack of the understanding of the market, and also like understand the fierce competition in China. So in China, when you talk about the competition, it's not like, oh, I really work hard, maybe 3 hours. No, sorry. 8 hours a day, then that's enough. But in China, it's talking about cutting throat, this bloody hell competition in China. So a lot of Israelis, I'm not saying Israelis, not just Israelis, also like other countries, they are kind of like chill, you know? We are geeks, we have this kind of lifestyle. But in China, it's not about that. It's about space. It's about a pace. It's about speed. You must be like react immediately. You must react like efficiently to cope with any problems you may see during like the whole journey. But sometimes, let's say for example, right now, China and Israel, we have 6 hours time difference, with US even more. And once you get the decision from the headquarters from Israel and then come back to China, too late. Yeah, so I think that's, the local team, they should have like more responsibilities, and they could make their own decision. That's very important. Another one is you need to give them trust, because if you use the Israeli mindset, you use the understanding of Israeli culture to cope with these things in China, I don't think that will work. I mean, like, I assume a lot of you have been to China before. It's the same, like, I like chicken fingers. Probably you guys know that chicken fingers, kind of like nasty Chinese snack. I like it, but doesn't mean like my Israeli colleagues like it. I always brought them some snacks from China, but they were like, we really love you, but we don't think we will like it. So that's the same thing. You just put yourself in their shoes and give them trust, and let them do more stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. Yifang, yeah, I have another question for you. It's related, it's all related. So the China-Israel business relations, it's often accompanied by what we call respect him and suspect him. So there are a lot of concern and debates about doing business in China, especially when it comes to the intellectual property rights in China. So what you as a manager was scouting for Israeli company to work in China, what benefits can you share with Israeli companies who want to enter this market, who are doing their first steps? Why should they choose China as their market?
Well, like many people will always say China is a huge market. They say like, if we can sell one toothbrush to each Chinese, we'll get billions of profit. It's just a matter of how you will do it. Sally mentioned one point which is very important. It's like you should trust Chinese. I'm not saying that don't worry about your IP, but like sometimes these problems happens everywhere. It's not in China. And the fame of copycat of China came mostly from the manufacturing industry, but now we're talking about high tech. And high tech is not something that you can, okay, we built mold and it's copied in the second day, or we built a cloth style, it's going to be copied in the second day. It's not the case anymore. And also, like if an Israeli company has a technology, has the IP, or has the proper way to protect themselves, they can go into China easily. It's just the point whether you can find the right partner to help you build a brand, or help you to build a channel, or even like us, help you to find the right person to talk with. I think this is the challenge that Israeli company always have, and by the point why they should, like how they should work with Chinese. First of all, like if you want to go into Chinese seriously, you need to at least find someone who knows about China or who can be dedicated to expand the Chinese market for you. For example, like Eastcham or Hire Israel like us, or whoever consultant are sitting here that is helping the startups to go into Chinese market. They're the right person you should talk to because they know the market. When like in the Israeli startups that everyone is doing everything, it's very hard to only have employees in the startups to expand into China successfully because it's a different market. So you need to have someone dedicated to help you with that. And this is the reason why we say Hire Israel is so important, because we are from Hire. We know what Hire wants. And also we are a local team. We know what Israelis want. So this is the point that, like, this is the advantage we see. Like all the global operations here, like the R&D centers here, innovation centers here, this is the value we can bring. And I wish this answers your question, and I think like there are a lot to discuss, but like all in all, you don't need to worry. And also, if you find a good partner, like a big partner like Hire or like Google or like let's say other big manufacturers or like big companies, the big companies can protect your IP because you are doing everything together. And he, like as a big player in the market, he can help you with their expertise, with their knowledge, with their big resource reservoir. They will help you because it's also helping themselves.
Thank you. It was a very good answer, but didn't completely answer the question of why should we choose China. If any one of you wants to elaborate on that, except for money. Why not? That's not the right panel. So I think we will sum it up because we are running out of time, but you are still here with us. So anyone who has questions for the ladies, you're welcome to reach them out later. Thank you very much for insightful inputs and tips, and thank you for joining us and listening.